right, welcome on into the Falls Count Anywhere podcast, live from Niagara Falls, New York. Well, not live, pre-recorded from Niagara Falls, New York. Charlie Turner, Chris DiCarlo, and John Restino all here with you as usual. Guys, as we are now officially into the summer season, the days are longer. Get those grills out and grill up some steaks and some hot dogs and some burgers and enjoy the damn summer before we go back into hibernation, at the end of the summer. So, guys, the show we have lined up for today is an easy one for me because, I could just hand it on over to the experts when we view these classic wrestling clips. And I'm a fan of these guys just listening to the analysis. So it's great. Chris, go ahead and give these gentlemen the proper introduction there.
Yes, we are honored and privileged to do this monthly show here in addition to Falls Count Anywhere. And this is our first one with not two, but three guests, all great wrestling historians and great people. First, we'd like to introduce all friends of the show from Hickory, North Carolina, Mr. Gennard Soley. Gennard, welcome aboard.
Well, good morning, everybody. Everybody looks like they're awake and fine and doing good. Thank you for inviting me back.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
And our second guest taking the place of George Shire today because he's under the weather, our good friend and host of Bumps and Thumps podcast, Mr. Brian Ferguson out of Missouri.
Thank you for having me on today. It's a pleasure and get to see all my good friends again.
Yes, sir. Thanks for coming on and joining us, buddy.
And last but not least, our good friend and historian out of Manitoba, Canada, Mr. Wes Maidment.
Hey guys, thank you very much for having me again. Great to meet Brian and Gennard for the first time, so I'm excited about a good show today. Let's get her going.
Absolutely. And welcome back, Wes and Gennard and Brian as well. You guys, man, it's always great to catch up with you guys because, we have the classic clips from the vault from Chris DiCarlo here, and to hear your guys' thoughts on it, for me as a fan is just, I just kind of sit back and let you guys do your thing, and it's exciting for me too. So, Chris, go ahead and take it over, buddy.
Okay, John, let's roll the first clip. Oh, wait, sorry, I forgot. Right, I forgot. We want to go around the horn because we do a Sheik tweets, and unfortunately, we lost the Iron Sheik. So if you guys just want to say something quick about the Iron Sheik.
Go ahead, guys.
Well, I was going to say I thought he was marvelous in the Mid-Atlantic with the Persian Club thing going against Blackjack Mulligan. Very strong personality back then instead of the cartoon that he turned into, but that's the business, is what it is. Also, he was great up here because he won the Canadian Championship from Angelo Mosca, and it was a big deal here in Toronto. So, in Toronto. I used to live in Toronto. I don't live there anymore. I keep saying in Toronto. But yeah, it was a big deal. And he exemplified pretty much a different kind of Sheik, but a Sheik still the same. And it's when I've been on your show, guys, and you've done the Sheik tweets in the past, it's just unbelievable. You guys researching those clippings. I loved it. It was he was the card for sure in his later life.
Twitter has not been the same. I already miss, going into his tweet sheet there and looking up like 4 or 5 of them I can pluck out for the show. And I already miss them, man. The Twitter is not the same, and it just hasn't been the same since. So rest in peace to the Sheik.
Yeah, I'll just say I remember Sheik when he was in the AWA, when he had hair, when and he worked as a referee. Mm-hmm. And basically as a, can you say jobber? Enhanced talent.
Yeah, you can say jobber. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was mainly that, but he grew and he was very, very athletic. I hear a lot of stories with Ken Patera and them guys talking about how strong he was in his early days especially, and he didn't drink or smoke or do any of that stuff in his early years when he came to America. And you're right. His Sheik tweets were very interesting, and he's going to be missed. I can't say enough about the man. I mean, I know he had a little controversy, but overall, the guy was a big part of the business, and he'll be missed. So
absolutely,
yeah. My dad found him very interesting to work with because he never knew what was going to come out of his mouth when he was doing an interview with him. And he always caught him by surprise. But the way the guy promoted himself, I thought was excellent because he really got into his character. When he came out to the ring, you knew he was coming out to the ring. And he was but he was awesome to people, to the fans. And that's what really counts is treating your fans with respect, because they're there paying the ticket and you're going to get paid by that ticket.
That's
so
right.
he definitely gave respect to the fans, and he's going to be definitely missed, especially with the tweets and the conversations he had later on in years of letting it flow just naturally.
Yeah, and for this week only, we do have a replacement for Sheik tweets, and we'll get to it later. And it's Charlie Turner tweets, and I didn't get the same reaction as Sheik did. We'll get to that later because I ended up getting the boot from Elon, but we'll get to that later anyway.
All right. Well, yes. Rest in peace, the great Iron Sheik, Hussein the Arab, Ali Vazari, whatever you want to go by. John, let's roll the first clip.
Well, look at the chest hair on that guy.
Make sure everyone's mic is unmuted.
Well, yeah, there may not be, but look at that headdress. Can't even see his face.
No, right?
The Wolf Man. Just goes to work on the sensational Super Destroyer here.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Wes, start it off.
Okay, you got three different beasts there. First beast is Johnny Yashetti out of Hamilton, Ontario. Big opponent of Bruno back in the 60s. Turned into a baby face in his last years. He's a great wrestler. Reminds me of Taz from the ECW with the loincloth suplex machine. The second beast you showed was the Cormier brother beast, Yvon Cormier from the East Coast of Canada. So you get two beasts there.
Oh.
Hey, the beast is a great name, right? What can I say?
Yeah.
And then third one obviously was the Wolfman, who was from Ontario, trained out in Calgary and Kazabaski's territory in northern Ontario. Great, as you can see here behind me, great friend of the Wild Man, who's my speciality, if you want to call it that. They teamed for years and years and years in the Detroit area, Indianapolis, and mostly in Ontario. Wolfman was a great guy. He could barely speak English for decades of being in North America, and I met him a few times. I showed him some old clips of his. He went absolutely ballistic, and he grabbed them out of my hand. Look, me. And it was so funny because he was so excited. Jannar, I don't know if you know this, or Brian, how many wrestlers kept stuff from their career? And when they saw something it was just so exciting for them, especially if it was 20 or 30 years prior, right? Those some great clips. And I love the ones from Buffalo, Chris. The first one with Yashedi was definitely from Buffalo. Buffalo tapes are awesome from the 60s.
I will say I didn't know the Beast that well, but I did see him a few times of some older clips, and he reminds me, honestly, of especially the later one when he's Wolfman, Bruiser Brody. The way his tactics, his brutality, his long hair, how he went in the ring, just started beating everybody up. Had the same kind of mentality, and of course, Bruiser Brody and John Nord the Barbarian, because those two with AWA back in the mid '80s, that's what they reminded me of, and that's something that's to me today is lost in this today's wrestling. And I don't mean to step on anybody's toes, but I watched a little of it last night, and I always just kind of shake my head and go.
Yeah.
That's how I'm going to end that. I'll pass it over to Jannard.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that, Brian. You don't see those type of wrestlers today. And back then, when you saw them and they came out to the ring, you knew they were there to do business. Whereas some of these guys today in organizations are very skinny. They don't look like wrestlers. They don't really have any muscles. And it's just the shock, that they're presenting them as wrestlers. But yeah, he and Bruiser Brody definitely looked alike, and they were very intimidating by their looks.
Massively.
And fans bought the story, and that was the main thing. It's just, they had to sell their story, and they did. So yeah, we're missing that type of caliber of wrestlers today.
I wanted to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You said something there, Jannard. You said professional wrestling, and I have a friend in Ontario who was he was a bit of enhancement talent, and he always reminded me when we'd go to shows, he'd say this, and we're sitting in the audience looking at these young, skinny, not very muscular guys, and he'd say, this is not professional heavyweight wrestling.
Right.
It's just wrestling. And I don't know if you guys, Brian or Jannard, if you guys are big on looking at clippings or anything. It's one of my passions. And actual ads for decades said a lot of times in the professional heavyweight wrestling or just professional wrestling. And it just completely, in my opinion, completely gone. My opinion only.
Yeah. No.
I agree. They recently had a segment with MJF and Adam Cole on AEW Dynamite, and even MJF said to Adam Cole, he's like, look how scrawny you are, dude. You hit the weight rack. The guy's about my weight, like about 190 pounds, 198 pounds. But yeah, and the other what I want to ask you about guys about as well, also in that clip, the legendary Classy Freddie Blassie. What are your thoughts on him as a manager? A lot of people have Bobby Heenan as like the top dog as far as managers. I do as well, but I also have Classy Freddie Blassie right up there with him.
Go ahead.
I'll go first. I will say, to me, Classy Freddie Blassie, Hollywood Freddie Blassie, a class act, always knew how to bring the heat for his guys, not himself. Did he for himself? Sure he did. But I mean, he always represented those heels. And I think he's really, to me, underrated and underappreciated. You always hear about Bobby Heenan, Jimmy Hart, those guys, Lou Albano.
Yeah.
You never hear really Fred Blassie. And Fred Blassie was a heck of a wrestler back in his day, too.
Yeah.
In the 50s and 60s. And even up to the early 70s, he was a wrestler, and a darn good one. So Freddie Blassie, he really didn't get recognition until he was in the 80s as a manager, and then he kind of drifted off. And it's unfortunate because I think he's really underappreciated. So that's how
agree.
I'll leave it at that.
Well, that's their main job, is to build their guys up.
Right.
They already got their mark. And now they're trying to bring these guys in and really build them up. And Freddie did that. Bobby Heenan was just, he just had the comments. You know, he was quick and witted and everything like that. But Freddie he acted more of, you know, let's do something to interfere and bring the fear. Whereas Bobby was more show. But yeah, I think Bobby Heenan was definitely a great manager. I think the four, sometimes I go brain dead. You guys know who I'm talking about.
J.J. Dillon?
J.J. Dillon.
Yeah.
You know, another good one. And you know, I think Lou Albano was good, but they're all good in their own certain ways.
Right.
But Freddie was more of, since he was a wrestler, and he was a great wrestler, but he was able to bring back the legitimacy of being a manager, I think.
So when you look at Blassie, and if anyone's followed any history, you would have known back in the day that he was a wrestler, and he probably, because of his age, he probably had a really long career, which he did, and he was a really famous wrestler. So he was probably given a lot of respect. Maybe he wasn't the show guy or this or that, and he wasn't bad on interviews at all, but he just didn't have that pizzazz that some of the other different guys have. When you can't knock him for that. But yeah, massive career, right? Because he started like in the 40s, and Gennard, he would have been a huge draw in the maybe even early 60s or late 50s in Georgia. So wow, massive career, and you can't take that away from a guy who knows what his job is as he moves on in his life and becomes a manager.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, John, let's roll our second clip here.
Welcome to UWA Wrestling, ladies and gentlemen. We have some great matches in store for you today. We'll have our first match right after this.
It's time for our next bout. This will be a tag team match. One fall, 10-minute time limit. Introducing in this corner, over 600 pounds combined weight from American Samoa, Afa and Sika, the Islanders. Their manager, gentleman.
The original bloodline there.
Yes. That became the Samoans, but they went by the Islanders. Look at this guy.
Wow. Those are legendary eyebrows.
It's two mates right here, if you will. I see Kangaroo Al is back with
This goes back to, we're looking at 1976, but great quality.
tag team this side of the fence. Okay. Wait a minute. Those words are a little too far, buggers. I'm going to bring it down. What do you mean, dude? With the best tag team find weight. From parts unknown. Top amateurs for the World Tag Team title, the Intern. And their manager, the one and only Dr. Ken Ramey.
So, guys, that was 1976, the UWA territory with Lou Thez as the host. Perfect quality, and man, you know me, I just love old school and old territories. I'm mad.
That's one on this match. Those matches there. That's where I can say the big guys. They were still in great shape. You know, where you see some of the bigger guys today, they're just not. And I'm not really talking about in the bigger leagues and the smaller leagues. You got some guys that are really heavyweight, and they go out there and they're just not in shape. These guys could go round for round with everybody, and didn't seem like they were caught short with breath. Lou Thez did a great job there. But yeah, those guys, they worked as teams, and they sold themselves as wrestlers.
For sure.
Yeah.
I will say that that's I'll kind of go off of that. The Islanders, I mean, I wouldn't have recognized them if I didn't really know who they were, because they look a lot different than they did later on when they were in the WWF as Afa and Sika, the Samoans.
Right.
But like Jannard said, those guys were big, but they weren't, I don't want to say the word fat, but I'll say the word fat. They were in great shape. They were bulky, but
that's just the Samoan blood, right?
Right, and they even those intern guys, underneath all that stuff. I mean, you could tell if somebody's in shape, and they probably could go an hour back then, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're lucky if you see one for 20 minutes, maybe.
Right.
Yeah. Without 20 minutes of talking prior to it.
Right.
But
God.
did I steal your line? Sorry, Les.
No. It just.
But it's just incredible because I was a little kid. In 76, I was 5 years old. But, I still can remember those kind of matches like that, those territories. And again, I know I'm on a soapbox repeating myself, but another lost art, telling a story, having a manager there. Now they call them advocates or advisors or some garbage like that. And they don't do nothing. They just stand there. Back in the day, they would interfere. They would get, whatever. But get back to the subject of tag teams. But Lou Thesz, he had a great promotion. Brought in a lot of good talent through there, and I'll just say that it's missed. So
let me ask you guys too, and Wes, I definitely want your thoughts as well. But let me ask you guys too. Just throw it out there as a question: is there any other wrestler that has a wrestling move named after them, like the Lou Thesz press? I can't really think of anybody, but his name stuck with that move, and Steve Austin used it a lot when he was a wrestler. I don't think there's any other wrestlers where there's a name after the hold, right?
Yeah.
That's a good point, Charlie. Yeah, not too many.
Pretty legendary stuff there, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can remember is the Gagne sleeper for Vern Gagne when he applied that move.
There you go, yeah.
But, I mean, today,
no,
I don't hear the MJF, whatever he does.
Yeah. I remember watching someone from Montreal back when I was a kid, and they put on a rolling arm leg scissors, and it was just a marvelous hold to watch. It looked so painful. It looked just crazy, but it was like 1,000,000% cooperative for both guys doing the right thing at the wrong time. I'm sure they would have busted their shoulder. And they said, "Oh, this was invented by Yvon Robert Sr." And just to see, no one's ever going to do that hold ever again, ever, because it's people would look at it and go, "What? They're just flipping? Oh, you're just flipping around the ring? That's what they're doing anyways, right?" But it's strange to think of all the things that are lost, even in our viewing time of professional wrestling. They're just gone. Absolutely. Like managers on TV, the TV show, come on, they've got to cheat. They have to, either it's sneaky crybaby cheating, or it's just blatant, I don't care about anything. I'm just going to do it anyways. And taking the heat off the referee and everything, but just going for it. And it just completely lost. Absolutely. Yeah. Not to take anything away from the clips. Yeah, it's free form here. So I love this idea of Charlie, you ask a question, you get on a topic, and we're all going sideways.
It's all good. We all love classic pro wrestling, and that's why we're here, and that's why we do this show once a month. It's great. Go ahead, Jannard.
Go back to what he was talking about is that it is a lost art, but I think a lot of these guys could take a lot of lessons from watching old clips and watching how people did things back in those days, because that's what really captured the fans. I mean, today you have so many people that are doing finishing moves that the guy gets right up from it, where back in the days, they wouldn't get up. So they're doing 4 or 5 of these hard finishing moves, and then they finally do a move to finish it, and it's just like, it takes away from it. It's like, well, this guy must be a really super. No, he's not. They're just making it look bad.
Yeah.
I agree 100% with that. Yeah.
The suplexes, the drop kicks, the masked wrestlers. It's crazy.
You mean
So-
suplex?
I mean, we've probably all seen classic matches where an enhancement talent goes in and the star is say he's a strong billed as a strong person like Bruno or whatever, and he catches the guy coming off the ropes. He gives him a body slam, picks him up, gives him another body slam, picks him up, gives him 3 body slams, and he pins him because it's a finishing move. It's
right.
a TV match finishing move, and yes, they're not going to do that in the arena, but it's putting them over, and like a body slam, like holy geez, come on guys, like do they do body slams even now, or is it body slam into some sort of flippy dippy off the ropes and jumping up?
Yeah,
Right.
you got it, Wes.
Sorry.
Yeah. All right, John, let's roll our third clip.
International Championship Wrestling, featuring the superstars of professional wrestling. Bill Moscada,
This is 1975 IWA territory, but this opening is just great. I love it.
Tex McKenzie, Take the Bulldog Flower, the Mighty Igor, Wonderful Patterson, the Love Brothers, Cowboy Bob Ellis, Eric the Red, Gino Brito, and Dino Bravo, Rip Hawk, Luscious Larry Heineming, Argentina Apollo, and Luis Martinez.
Some impressive sideburns and mustaches there.
This is Jack Reynolds at ringside. Joining me a little later on in our program will be Tex McKenzie. Coming to you, Joe Turco.
Oh boy.
And in the morning tonight, ladies and gentlemen, from Mexico City, Mexico, weighing in at 241 pounds, the IWA International Wrestling Champion. A big round of applause for Bill Moscada. Here's the International Wrestling Heavyweight Champion, the guy that... Let me tell you something, Mr. Julio Nelson.
The big cat.
Players in professional wrestling for a week now. That man is weak. And don't you ever believe that I'm going to give anything up. No, and Bolo, the fabulous Mongols. Thank you, Moses. The action is getting ready right away. Let's go. Bravo and Mongols. Igor now. Going up against the Bulldog Flower. Headbutt.
That was 1975, 76 IWA Eddie Einhorn's promotion, guys. I believe out of North Carolina, I heard. But what great footage and great quality.
Definitely. Yeah, that's characters right there. I mean, those each guys had their own marks, especially the guys with the hairdo. I hate to see them go through an airport. But yeah, those guys really put it together. I mean, they worked hard in those matches, and the headbutts and everything that they were putting on, you just don't see that today. But those guys are awesome.
There's a lot of famous guys there from the IWA, guys who were kind of on the outs or just guys who were mid-level stars, sort of, right? But or closer to the end, like Brower. But oh my gosh, the IWA was such a great transition promotion from your area, which the NWF in the Buffalo area, Cleveland, from the early 70s. And I have a good friend in Buffalo, New York, who was good friends with Ron Martinez, who was the announcer on those shows. And of course, it was Eddie Einhorn and his dad, Pedro Martinez, who were the promoters. And it's just so nice to see those guys on TV, and so many also Canadian guys that were prominent in those promotions. But Gennard, I got a question for you. Brian, it's for you, Brian. What did you know and tell us about Luscious Larry Anderson or
He was Lars Anderson, yes.
Lars Anderson, yeah.
Lars Anderson and Luscious Larry, yeah. You know, he was both when I was a kid. He came back one time as Lars, and then a few years later he was Luscious Larry. He, big guy, could wrestle. In Minnesota, he was part of the original Minnesota Wrecking Crew with Ole and Gene. They took him under their wing. And I can just tell you that I seen him actually in person. I was a little kid. But, you know, you think those guys are big on TV. When you see them in person, they're like giant monsters. I mean, especially for a little 6-7-year-old boy I was at the time when I saw Lars. He looked like Andre the Giant to me. I'm a little guy. Yeah. And but those guys back then, they could, like Jannard was saying, they could move. They sold what if you got punched in the face, if you got an elbow drop, a drop kick, an atomic drop, which they don't even hardly do anymore. I haven't seen that in years.
Right.
They would sell it. They would, you know, it looks so real. You're like, he's not going to be able to get up from that.
Yeah.
And they didn't after, you know, a few times or whatever, you know, the souffle we were talking about. But the IWA, you know, we saw Mil Mascaras, another guy to me that should have went farther, and I don't know the whole story behind his background. But to me, a guy that little underappreciated in my view. He was in all of those territories. He's probably in all of them. Yeah. And usually had a belt of some kind. Usually, one of the probably best known masked stars.
Masked babyface for sure.
Yeah, masked babyface. You know, he was on the first cover of PWI in '79 with Dusty Rhodes. So yeah, I mean, Lars. To go back to Lars and Luscious Larry, great guy, great wrestler. Could sell, and you hated him. Yeah. You loved to hate him, I guess you wanted to say.
Yeah. So, well, I think that where it goes back to the independent states, where people could go from state to state. You know, they could stay in one area for a while, for a year, maybe 2 years, then move to another state. They were getting more of an opportunity to wrestle against so many other people and fine-tune their skills. Whereas today, when you're in the WWE or even the AEW, the guys they're just the same people. They wrestle over and over and over. And that's what gets boring. Whereas when you see him now wrestling this guy, and then all of a sudden you see him in another state wrestling this guy, it gets a following. You know, granted, you can't be a heel back then you could be a heel in one state and a baby face in another state. Yeah, definitely. Where today with the internet and everything, you couldn't do that. Well, to me, it's like, if you're going to turn babyface, stay babyface for a couple of years, then have them turn heel. And then that way, when they come back into a territory, now they're a heel. And now people are like, what happened to him? You know, I used to love him. You know, oh, now I hate him. Yeah. And that was the whole thing. People love to hate the people because in wrestling, you could identify with a baby face because you saw their faces. And you could identify with the heel because you saw what they looked like. Not like in football where they always have a helmet on. You can see these guys' reactions and their facial. And I think that's what we're missing today.
Yeah.
I saw Mil Mascaras once live, and I think he only came to Toronto once, and I had to go to see him just to say, oh my God, I got to see him live. And it was basically a glorified squash match, but it was still great to see him. Definitely, without questioning any of his whatever people say about him, the guy was gold on the magazine covers for sure. Like you said, Brian, absolute gold. And I think he was definitely the most famous masked babyface ever, for sure.
I just want to point out too, you know, back then, a lot of the enhanced talent was on television, you know, every week. that's how you build these guys up.
Yeah.
You know, and now you don't see that. It's all, you know, like Jannard said, it's the same guy beating up the same guy every week or every other week, whatever. And you know, all those clips you guys showed had what? They had the superstars, and they usually had the enhanced talent, /jobbers. Who did the match for 10 minutes. Sometimes they get a little bit in, they, you know, but that's gone. And I think that's one of the missing key components of today's wrestling. You know, I know they want to get all the ratings and all that. They got ratings back then. I'm sorry, they did a lot of ratings. You know, and you know when Jannard's dad did.
Yeah, that's a great point, Brian. Yeah. No, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but I was going to say I recently watched a shoot interview with Bobby Heenan from years ago, and they asked him about when they switched over from like the super. Well, they still kept doing WWF Superstars on stuff, but they transitioned to Monday Night Raw, and he was stating about how you didn't really see the jobber enhancement talent matches anymore. But then, in a way, because Vince went to like a monthly pay-per-view, it took away from the pay-per-views. You know, when you had an opportunity to build those guys up with the enhancement talent throughout the months and build up the storyline on the side, and then the pay-per-view would provide the huge match that everybody was waiting for, where now you're getting that every single week, like you guys are saying, on AEW, on Raw, and SmackDown. So, yeah, it's a lost art.
Also, you don't see them doing interviews, you know, where you know, the announcer or, you know, the guys doing the interview can really get underneath the skin of the heel, and they can build up the baby face. You don't see that at all. So you have no storyline.
Yeah.
You know, unless when they do the storylines on WWE, I don't look at those as storylines. You know, you want to know why that guy's doing it. It's like the only storyline I saw that I thought they did good on WWE was Bob Orton with his wife, and I think it was I'll think of his name, but they did a storyline where he went into their home and everything, and it brought interest. But they just don't do the storylines.
Triple H.
Yeah. Oh, Randy Orton and Triple H, right? When Triple H broke into his house. Yeah, that's right. Or vice versa. Randy Orton broke into his house. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you don't see that heat storylines anymore. Well, but look at Austin going to Pillman's house, and Pillman had a gun. That probably. But Charlie, why don't we go to our break?
I was going to say, let's take our first break here, our only break. We're going to check in with our sponsors here, and we'll be right back. So hang with us.
Okay.
Digits 988 can save a life. If you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide or experiencing a mental health or substance use crisis, 988 provides connection to free confidential support. There is hope. The Lifeline works. For 24/7 confidential support, just call, text, or chat 988.
All right, welcome on back to the Falls Count Anywhere podcast, and thank you to all of our sponsors. We appreciate all of you. We are back here with a panel, if you will, for our once a month dive into the classic clips that are provided from Chris DiCarlo here. We are with Wes Maidman, Brian Ferguson, and Jenard Soley. It's a pleasure to have you guys so far, and we got a couple more clips to talk about here, guys. So, Chris, take it over again, buddy.
Well, yeah, we got one last clip here, and then we're gonna let Jenard promote the upcoming Hall of Fame in Waterloo, Iowa. But first, our last clip.
We've done exactly that for this week. We'll be seeing matches from Tampa, we'll be seeing matches from Atlanta, from St. Petersburg, and I have a very, very special announcement that I'm going to be making a little bit later on in the program.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vince McMahon, and standing next to me, the man with the golden tan and the golden voice to match. The voice of professional wrestling here in Atlanta, Georgia, Mr. Gordon Soley. Gordon, welcome.
Thank you very much, Vince. Certainly a pleasure to have you visiting this house, and I think we're going to see some, very exciting matches tonight, and of course, that world title on the line. Well, obviously, it's quite large, but when was a tremendously marked difference between you and...
Never gets old, the size of Andre, man. Holy cow.
This, Gordon.
Yeah, really.
You in your life, you do with self-determination. I don't have all that great amateur background.
One tough dude there, Harley Race.
Yeah, and the big cat, Ernie Ladd here.
Well, first of all, let me just point out that tonight you will...
Speaking of, here's 79, Bobby Heenan in Georgia.
And there will be wrestling, of course, every Friday night in Knoxville at the Civic Coliseum. And don't forget, wrestling coming to Jakula in the very near future. And of course,
Friday night's the big night. Friday night, Stan Hansen.
in professional wrestling today, their spokesman is Mr. Michael Hayes.
Freebirds, 1980.
Fabulous Freebirds. Ladies and gentlemen, you have seen all kind of great tag teams come through your area. And you have always seen two men complement. Just a moment, if we can. The Universal Heavyweight Champion is still Dory Funk Jr. As you know, of course, Dory Funk Jr. held the NWA World Heavyweight Championship for 4 and 1. Thank you so very much, and hi everybody. Welcome to Florida Championship Wrestling, and sanctioned, of course, by the Professional Wrestling Federation of America.
So before I was saying some rare clips of the great, as we were talking off camera, our love for your dad, Jenard, the one and only Mr. Gordon Soley.
Oh, thank you very much. He was special. Actually, I have some films of me sitting next to him in the Florida Championship matches.
Oh, cool.
I was his sidekick for a while. Yeah, he just had a way of talking with people and getting you to, you would believe anything he said because he had it with such a straight face. But yeah, working with like Harley Race, I mean, Dad loved Harley. Harley was such a character. But he was always right there for you, and he always came through in the matches. To mention Jack Briscoe, because Jack was a worker. Jack knew what he wanted to do when he was growing up. He wanted to be world heavyweight champion, and Jerry knew what he wanted to do. He wanted to be the junior world heavyweight champion, and they both accomplished their goals. But the way that championship wrestling evolved really brought all the talent into here, into Florida. And that's how he became the best, because he did it like what Cowboy Luttrell wanted him to do. He asked the Cowboy, how do you want me to call the matches? And he says, like, your job depends on it. Mm-hmm. And not no bull crap or anything like that. Just do it right. Get the fans to believe you, because there were so many announcers out there that kind of made a joke of wrestling in the early 50s. They didn't take it serious. And that was the one thing Dad did. He took it serious and he brought it to you. I remember my dad one time, we were driving along. He told me, he said, John, I want to tell you, he says, wrestling's fake. I looked at him, I said, I know that. And he was like, no, you didn't. I said, yeah, I knew that. I said, I painted the inside of the sportatorium. I knew there was only one dressing room. You know, one of the other guys just changing in a bathroom. You know, and I said, and I had Jack and Jerry Briscoe, and I had Roop, you know, sharing an apartment. When anybody was in town, I had a 2-bedroom apartment. I had a place to stay instead of staying at a hotel. I said, so here I had 2 baby faces and a heel. So yeah, he said, well, you might have thought. I said, no, really, Dad. Give me a break on that. Yeah, because the one thing that I always do is when I would come to the Sportatorium and I'd go in and see Charlie, Charlie would say, okay, let me call you Dad. He called me and says, just hold on a minute. And Dad would go back, okay, you can go up the middle steps, you know, on the outside. So I'd go up the middle steps to his office. It was like, what are you trying to get the wrestlers out so I don't see baby faces and heels together? You know, but I do know this, that Florida is working on down in Miami area. It's the Coastal Championship Wrestling. They are also bringing back championship wrestling from Florida.
Wow.
And Kevin Sullivan's involved in it. And and these guys have been in business for 18 years.
Okay. Wow.
And they have worked themselves up to where they're getting bigger and bigger crowds. They're becoming well established because they have a streaming in there. So they're building the studio for championship wrestling, just like the studio back in the 70s.
That's awesome.
Wow.
You know, and so this guy's very determined to make things work for that. But also he has rules for his guys. He says nobody is to hit the outside steel cage around the fans, you know, or what do you want to call it? The rail. Yeah, he says, don't hit that. You know, and he's looking at, don't hit that because you don't want to injure a fan out there and everything. And he'll let a guy go if he hits it. He's like, gave you a warning. You know, we'll see you in a few months or so.
Mhm.
So they're trying to really bring it back. And that's why I think some of the independents are missing the point is, and like you said, they have markers in professional wrestling. When they're not professional, they're just wrestling. They don't stream them or anything. So they don't get a storyline out there and they're not going to get a following. So that's why you're going to see only 25, maybe to 100 people, you know, at a match.
Yeah.
Whereas these guys are pulling in, you know, maybe 1,000 people. I mean, I went to an AML match and in Hickory. Place was packed, you know, and the fans were just loving it. And the kids loved it. And the wrestlers played up to the kids when they walked around the ring. And that's what it's about, is getting out there and working the crowd. And that was something that they did in Florida. I mean, even Eddie had a thing that you weren't allowed to live, a heel and a baby face weren't even allowed to live in the same apartment complex. They had to live in different apartment complexes.
Wow.
The only time they ever associated was at the bar, you know, and it was on Tuesday night after the matches. They'd all go to this one bar, and it was a country western bar, and baby faces stayed on one side and heels stayed on the other side.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was a really good time back then.
That's awesome.
I'll chime
Brian
in
or
if you
Wes,
don't
any
mind.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, I will say one thing about Gennard's father. I've never heard that man raise his voice when calling a match, when interviewing anyone. He always kept his composure, kept his professionalism, which I know had to be very difficult at times, because if he got excited about a move a wrestler did in a match, he was always had that tone. He was the dean, but he just had that tone of, I know what's going on. I'm explaining it to you. I'm not going to get overexcited or, you know, upset about anything. I'm just calling the match as I see it. And that is very rare. And plus it wasn't scripted. Now, you know, unfortunately,
Yeah.
all these announcers in the big, you know, WWE, it's all scripted. They have a piece of paper in front of them, or they got to memorize something, and they got to call it. And Jannard was talking about an independent. There's an independent here in Springfield. Oh, it's in Harrison, Arkansas, actually. But tonight they're going to be here, and they have the same type of mentality of that old school. And if you don't brush up to the standards, he talked about the barrier. They have a very strict code too here with this Mid-States Wrestling out of Harrison, where if you don't do as you're told and follow the rules, you're gone. And they packed the house tonight. Where I'm going here, there are probably going to be 700 people there, and that's packed house. I mean, it's full. And so, getting back to your father though, I can't say enough about the man. I mean, I knew him basically when he was in Georgia, and with Jim Crockett for a while in the Mid-Atlantic, and he just had that look. Like he was your dad, Sure. I know he's your dad, Jannard, but I mean, he was like my dad.
Yeah.
Talking to me about wrestling and just, he just had that it factor of where you wanted to listen to him and you believed him, you understood him. He was like your dad on TV, from Fathers Knows Best or something, and And I just can't say enough because today, and I don't want to take anything from Wes here. I know he's got to chime in here in a minute, and that's, but like you said, interviews today, there aren't any. It's all called on the mic. They might have a female back there for a minute, and they just usually brush her off and take the mic and talk what they want to say. So, again, lost art. And
to build on your point there, Brian, about how even keeled Gordon Solie was. Kind of reminds me of legendary football announcer Pat Summerall was kind of the same way.
Yeah.
Called the action, right? And that's what made him so legendary, right?
Yep. Him and John Madden. John Madden was the the loud, crazy one, and then you had the even keel Pat Summerall. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I remember watching on videotapes ECW, and Joey Styles at the time was really young, brash, and he was very, very exciting as an announcer. Mm-hmm. Did that take away from the wrestlers? Probably, but it was different, and it was enjoyable. I really enjoyed his style.
Yeah.
But there's a different time, right? That's a different time period, a different way things were changing. And when you watch, I swear, when you watch even 15 seconds of Gordon Solie, you say to yourself exactly what you guys just said. That's my dad. He wasn't 6'4", so he towered over the wrestlers, or he wasn't some kind of boisterous person who was putting himself over. I think he told the story. He did he let them do what they had to do, but he was doing his job, holding them in, reining them in, and it's just so believable and so much of that era which exemplified professional wrestling announcers. That was the Dean. They call him the Dean, but you know what? He was more than that, because everybody who follows professional wrestling history, even like this much, right, knows that was a voice, and that was a gold standard of what it should be.
Yeah. Well, he also explained to the fans when they were putting a move on them what the move was affecting in their muscles and why it was hurting so much. Nobody talks about that today.
Collar, elbow, tie up. You don't hear that.
Yeah. So that's what's missing. And, I can just say, as long as I'm live, I'll help to promote his history of my dad.
Super.
That's awesome.
Well, we always do here. We talk about him at top of the list. He's number one, no matter what.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Jannard, why don't you tell our viewers out there, remind them about the upcoming Waterloo, Iowa convention, July 19, 20, 21st?
The 20th, 21st, and 22nd.
Close.
And everything. But first, I want to just say one thing to Charlie. Charlie, you don't need your grill if you live in Texas. You don't need Charlie for gas.
So right on the side, right on the sidewalk, right?
Yeah. But,
You just pick some roadkill up right off the ground and eat it, right?
Oh, I know. Don't bring that up. But no, on the 20th, 21st, 22nd, the Hall of Fame will be in Waterloo at the Dan Gable Museum, at the Convention Center, and then also at the hotel. Everything is within walking distance. The Convention Center is right across the street from the hotel, and the Dan Gable's Museum is about 1.5 blocks from there. So everything's walking distance. Thursday night, we have meet and greet, where we just meet with all the fans. They come in, the ones that have tickets. We have pizza and beer setting up, and they can walk through the museum and see everything. We have a silent auction that's going on of wrestling memorabilia. So it's a great way of giving back to the fans. And then we also have a raffle that I started, and this year it's going to be the biggest raffle I ever did, because I'm still a firm believer that you got to thank the fans, because like I said before, without fans, you have no wrestling, and without fans, you have no Hall of Fame.
Right.
So it's just a way of giving back to the fans. Then on Thursday night, we have trivia night over at the hotel bar, where we have one of the guys that does the music and everything at the matches. He also does the trivia. So he comes up with all these trivia questions. We all set up in teams, and then they just go from that. And everybody has a great time. And I'll be doing, like, at the first day, I'll give away 2 mugs. And these are stainless steel mugs with wrestlers' pictures on them. You can't buy them in the store. You can't find them anywhere because I'm the only one that makes them. So they're one of a kind. So to me, they're worth $100. Then on trivia night, we do 4 more pictures. This year there will be canvas, but they're 8x10s or 12x12s. I don't remember exactly the sizes. And we'll pull tickets out and give those to them. Then on Friday morning, there is a roundtable discussion. I'm not sure of what we're doing this year. I was kind of hoping to do where we have the wrestlers up there and they just talk about stories, their road trips. There's enough of, everybody knows their history of them wrestling. Well, let's give the other side of it and give their funny stories of pranks that they did on other wrestlers. And there's a lot of them out there. Then Friday night, there's the matches. Well, but then we also have some other things going on in the museum too. And then Friday night, the matches Troy Peterson puts on with Impact Wrestling. And during that matches, I will also be giving away for the tumblers again. But that's nice about it, these tumblers you can take with you. You fill them with water, go to work. So
right.
You're kind of spreading the word of the museum and the wrestler. Then after that, we all go to the Pizza Hut, not the Pizza Hut, but a pizza place across the street. And, we have pizza. It costs $12.99. You get as much pizza as you can stuff in your stomach. This year, I'm just going to go for sandwiches because I gained too much weight last year. And then Saturday night, we have the dinner. And so this year we have Demolition that's coming. We have, of course, Bob Roop that'll be there. We have John Larroquette who's going to be there. Jerry Briscoe is going to be there. Then we got all the inductees. Bill Motto is going to be there. Les Thatcher's going to be there. And I know I'm going to forget somebody.
Conrad Thompson
is going to be there. So it's going to be a good group of people. Trying to get Brett to show up. Hopefully he'll show up. So we'll see what all happens, on that night. But it's going to be a great night. In the beginning of the night, I'll be doing, again, the raffles. And this year I did something a little different. I took a picture from last year of all the people that won the awards, and there's 4. And I got a picture that's I had put on a medal of them holding their awards, all 4 of them. So somebody's going to get that, and that's going to be a great addition to their walls and everything. Then also, so we'll do all those. But then my last part that I'm going to do is I have a set of 8 tumblers with different wrestlers on them that I'm going to pick a number, a table number. And everybody at that table is going to get one.
Oh,
and
cool.
they're all going to be different. And again, like I said, this is just my way of saying thank you, fans. We love you. And I think that's the way it should be. You're honoring both. You're honoring the fans. You're honoring the wrestlers. And a lot of these guys their pictures are going to be on the mugs. So it's going to be an honor for them. And then after that Sunday, we all get on the airplanes and take off, go home. My mistake is my plane doesn't leave till 6:30 Sunday night. So I'll be sitting by myself at the airport. But no, it's going to be a lot of fun. And that's the main thing. We got a lot of people showing up. So
I know since we met you, Gennard, the past 2 years of the Hall of Fame that I've been around, we promote it. And one of these years I'm going to get there. I'm telling you. Brian, I know you can't go this year, but maybe we'll go next year, guys. And Wes, you drive down too.
It's not that far for me.
This year, unfortunately, I was gonna go, Gennard. I had plans, but my grandkids are gonna be here at the same time, and they live in Maryland now, so I have to, I gotta spend as much time as I can with them because I don't see them very often. But next year, I really do plan on going. It's not that far from here. It's about a 6-hour drive to Waterloo, so. Yeah, I definitely plan on going because I would love to meet you in person and meet all these great legends that are part of that Hall of Fame. So, yeah.
So, Chris, what I could do is I could just swing by and pick up George Shire and we could travel down together.
There you go.
There you go. You're right. There you go. And we'll do the 12-hour drive from Niagara Falls, New York to Waterloo, or we'll fly it. I don't know.
Or you can hitchhike.
I told my wife, I'm really upset this year because Bill Eadie, Demolition, but Bill Eadie, the mass superstar, right? John, can you imagine meeting him in person?
Exciting. Yeah.
That would be awesome.
I love the fact that Demolition is still doing things together as a team. I think they celebrated a 35-year anniversary, I think, within the last couple of years. Of kind of just being together, going to these conventions and Hall of Fames, and we know the legendary history of Demolition. Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, we got to get some kind of carpool going. I just don't want to drive. I'll go. I just don't make me drive. That's all. So I can fall asleep in the back.
Well, I just drove down to Florida, and I told my wife that I don't want to stop. I'll do the complete drive, and. This year, after we got down there, I told her, I said, you know what? I said, anytime we go down to Florida again, we're going to stop. I said, I can't do a 12-hour drive anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Once you get to that age, I think, I can still do it in my mind, I think it. But the body says, no.
No, you can't. Gentlemen, are you sticking around with us for the rest of the show, or are we cutting you loose here? However you guys want to do it, it's up to you.
Whatever you want.
I'm fine.
Yeah, we're just going to mention real quick, AEW Collision tonight on TNT, live from Toronto, Scotiabank Arena. Also tomorrow, AEW Forbidden Door 2 pay-per-view this year, all from Toronto, near you, Wes, Scotiabank Arena. AEW has invaded.
And closer to me and you than Wes, probably.
They're going to have a big show. They're going to have a really great show.
Yeah.
And then Charlie, take it away.
Yeah, I was going to say that pay-per-view, they got a ton of matches going on here. You got belts from New Japan, you got belts from AEW, all in play here. Bryan Danielson and Okada going at it, and MJF is going to be wrestling a huge match, and that he tried to talk his way out of, but now he's going to be wrestling there. Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay. So yeah, it's a huge card, and I know it was very successful last year. So we'll look forward to that. And of course, next week, next week is going to be Money in the Bank for WWE. We'll talk about that on next week's show as well. But guys, we definitely want to check in for this week with again. We usually fill this spot here with the Sheik tweets, and we know the history of the Sheik tweets. He was telling people to go F themselves, about putting people in camel clutches and humbling Hulk Hogan and kicking your ass and his ass. So I ended up going on Twitter somewhat recently, and Elon Musk is talking about having a cage match or an octagon match with Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook. So Dana White, who runs the octagon there, he made a statement on Twitter, and I just recently tagged Elon Musk, and I just made the statement that they both need their asses kicked, and could we get Brock Lesnar involved somehow and have like a triple threat match? Then immediately, as soon as I hit send, I get this notification that I have to remove this thing. And so of course I screenshotted it and I put it on my Twitter feed, and I said, "Hey, free speech," right? And I put a big old middle finger next to it. So just, you have to be the legend of the earth, like the Sheik, to get away with that sort of thing. I am not the legend of the earth, and that's why I got the hot boot there from Elon. So Turner tweets for 1 week only. There it was.
Awesome.
Already in trouble. Are you in Twitter jail?
I was. Now I've been reinstated as of today, so I made my return.
I'd like to say one thing about your sponsors that I admire. I really do admire the Suicide One. I think that's a great sponsor, and I appreciate you guys having that on your show, because more and more people do need to look at that and have a way to get a hold of somebody. Because I heard about the person that went on and talked to somebody for 6 hours, John, and just really impressed. I thought that was great.
Yeah, well,
That's a great point,
not to cut you guys off, but that's what we do. But normally at the end of the show, too, we have our, what do you call it, Charlie?
We just kind of give like some public service information, whether it be the mental health hotline, the suicide hotline, human trafficking, all that stuff. We just like to throw it out at the end of the show there, just to kind of, we have a platform to get information out to people. And we feel, Gennard, you make a good point, about suicide. Locally here in Buffalo, there was a student in school, from bullying and cyberbullying. These kids say that you can't escape it. When you go home, you're still getting it online. Back in our day, you got off the bus and you're home and you're in your safe place. But now it's 24/7. And unfortunately, there was a student that took his own life. So, if he maybe had that opportunity to speak with somebody, it could have been very important, and not having him do that. And so we like to provide that information to anybody that might be, and if it just reaches one person, that's the point. And hopefully, it's a good thing going forward. So yeah.
No, keep it up. Keep it up.
Thank you very much, guys, for having me on today. Great to meet you, Brian and Gennard. Awesome. Thank you so much for letting me speak with you today. It was great to meet you. I really appreciate the time.
Wild man, it's good to meet you.
Awesome.
Good to meet you too. Yeah. Pleasure.
Absolutely, guys. We have a pleasure having all of you guys on. And as we wrap up here, if you guys want to stick around for our Jobber of the Week, our Enhancement Talent of the Week, let's throw them up there real quick. Give them some quick love there. It's Mr. Martin Roy, who was part of the WWF there from 1988 to 1997. He only wrestled 8 matches, 0-8 in his career, and here he is getting his ass kicked by John Tenta, the Earthquake. But hey, like I said, the Earthquake has to put somebody in that hold, and unfortunately, it was Martin Roy at this point. But we want to just throw some love out there to those guys that put over the big marquee talent. And Martin Roy was certainly one of those guys. Again, only 0-8 in his career over a 9-year span, so probably just one match a year whenever the WWF was in his area, which I believe he was from Canada. I'm not 100% on that. Probably should have wrote that down. But we just want to give those guys some love for being the enhancement talent for the marquee guys on the wrestling card there. So shout out to Martin Roy, even though you did get whooped by the Earthquake there. We just wanted to throw him some love there.
No, without them, wrestling wouldn't be the same.
Yeah,
that's right, absolutely. And like we talked about earlier, we kind of missed that because it gave an opportunity to build up when those guys faced another marquee talent, and it made it that much more special. So shout out again to Martin Roy for providing that from back in the 80s and 90s. But guys, as we mentioned, when we do wrap up the show, we are a show of the people. We like to give out some health information. John, do you have anything there?
Yeah, I do. And this is a local number here where we live, but anywhere in the United States and in Canada, there's a YWCA near you. And truly in every county in the United States, you can find one. So that number's our local number, but you got one there. If you are currently in abusive relationships, you're, domestic violence, you're a victim of sexual assault, those types of things, please, the YWCA is there for you. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When you call them, they also are there. There's, counselors standing by. They are 100%, professional. Everything's anonymous too. They'll help you find things in your own neighborhood, your own city. Also, there's advocates there. So if you're someone who had to go to the hospital, you needed to go to court or police station, they'll come with you to make you feel comfortable. So that's the YWCA in every county in the United States and up in Canada.
Excellent.
Very good.
Chris, do you have some info for us as well?
No, I don't. That's about it.
I thought you were going to go through the Friends Network and that type of spiel there.
I get so excited when we do this once a month show, right, guys? I told you about it. I can't wait. It gets in my mind. Yes, we'd like to, as Brian has a great commercial promoting our show, Brian. Thanks for that. Thank our viewers on all of our platforms. Of course, here on Facebook is our home. Also, our YouTube there, as you see, Friends with the Z Media Network. Put that in all together under the search on YouTube, and you can see not only just this show, but John's other shows and his sports spitball and podcast. And we got 46 subscribers. We're trying to get 1,000, but we're getting there. And also on our Twitter is @CountAnywhere. That's also growing. I talk to all kinds of people on Twitter from across the country. And also we're on Spotify as well. And John, tell us about our Facebook has a program too. Brian, we might want to listen to this. Facebook Stars.
Oh, yeah. If you're out there right now watching this and you are so inclined, send us 99 cents. That gives us 100 stars. The 100 stars will equal, if you get enough of them, we can get some kind of advertising through Facebook. Other than that, we just take the dollar and put it back into the shows. Whatever we can do to get maybe, better cameras, better anything and everything. Maybe guests if we had, I don't know. We don't like to pay for them, but you never know. So you just give us 99 cents. We'll take that and it goes right back into it. And it also gives us the 100 stars. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you again so much for joining us. Again, thank you to Wes Maidman, wrestling historian, the host of Bumps and Thumbs podcast, Mr. Brian Ferguson, and the son of legendary Mr. Gordon Soley, Mr. Gennard Soley. We thank you so much for joining us on the Falls Country Anywhere podcast. We appreciate your time, guys, and we look forward to catching up with you again.
Always a pleasure.
Always. Your show is great, by the way, and I love promoting it. You guys do a great job, and I'm going to still keep on trucking with it. So,
absolutely, man. And we'll keep learning from what you do as well, Brian, on your podcast. We certainly enjoy that. So keep up the good work as well, sir.
Thank you.
I think you both do a great podcast. And
thank you very much.
I'm honored to be on both of them, and I do appreciate it. Just keep up the good work.
Thank you, guys. That means a lot. And again, we'll catch up soon and see what's going on with you guys and on the CAC and what else is going on with Bumps and Thumbs and whatnot. So we look forward to your return.
Thank you.
Okay.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Have a great week, guys.